Hello again. It's late at night. I'm off work. 1:40 in the morning. Got a cat right next to me. And so, right? It's about talking about it, right? It's about bringing the condition to the forefront, right? And so, right, the formula stays the same. I'll be reading 10 pages from my novelization of my experiences. It spans between May of 2021 to the present. Traffic, how tedious. The great joy of America. All these fucking miles. I've been driving all day across Texas from one job to the next, back to the second. Northern Louisiana, Pine Thicket, Carthage area, to Artesia, New Mexico, to Montrose, Colorado, Western Slope, back to Artesia. I work for a construction company which upcycles oil drilling pipe into foundational helical piles, screw piles. I had the bleeding heart of an artist. Guitarist of long standing, took some acting classes. I was a huge hit, as well as a voracious literary palate. First novels, countless novels, then philosophy, and I had in my adolescent zeal convinced myself I wouldn't read any more novels. Though finding Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy in a thrift store recently has rekindled my love of fiction. I suspect I am a writer. Now I am in El Paso. I have a flight out of here to New York City tomorrow morning, some 10 or 12 hours from now. I have recently discovered the late Russian master Andrei Tarkovsky, and the Lincoln Center is screening The Mirror. A friend of mine who worked for the company a long time has his house here. I'm parked in his driveway. His name is Kevin, often referred to as lovingly as Little Kevin, as he is shorter, maybe 5'6", Mexican descent. He has siblings across the border. We've spent a lot of time together over these last years. Though he quit some 6 months ago, who could blame him? It is a soul-crushing job for anyone whose heart beats for anything beyond money. I am not sure what he does now. It's my first time visiting his home. I asked him if I could park my truck at his house, and if he could drop me off at the airport. He agreed. I drive a '98 Tacoma, camouflage primer green, in a great disheveled state, as I travel between jobs, and so in a big way live out of it. I grow weary of this pace as Kevin did. He's coming out now. Going through security with TSA was tedious. I always have Kratom with me, and so separate it because I know they will test it. They brought me aside, as they always do. A young security jerk, who looks kind of like Kevin, actually, looked ambitiously between me and my container of pre-workout that I replaced with Kratom. How long you had this? I was not used to questions. Usually they just test it and give it straight back. A month. That was an awful answer. And you still haven't taken any yet? I stared blankly at him before replying. You're welcome to dump it out if you'd like. Sitting now at the gate, I chuckle at TSA, inspecting my kratom so intensely. Border life shit. They thought, though they did not dump it out, that maybe I was smuggling cocaine or some such. After tapping it and listening for a false bottom that likely he couldn't hear even if it did exist, he closed it and gave it back to me, glowering all the while. Kevin seems to be in good spirits, doing something with real estate. In truth, it smacked of a pyramid scheme. He showed me a video clip of him holding 50,000 stacks in each hand, with him prattling on about your house. As a drone panned up, the frame revealed a tacky desert suburban landscape similar to his house. A good starter home. He also said he was doing something with pools. The sales for a pool company or something like that. The company out of Juarez, catering to well-to-do Americans on the other side of the border. It was good to see him. Though as an alien, friendships elude me. I consider him a good egg, as terrestrial dwellers often opine. We had lots of bizarre conversations. I would make jokes about there being 2 moons. It's dark somewhere, no? He seemed to understand when I spoke of literature and philosophy, but he is clueless, really. Everyone asks me when they see me reading Shakespeare with a highlighter what I'm marking, and I always say, just the things worth remembering, poetic lines and the like. This is my second time trying to read all of the plays. I have enjoyed it both times, though the majority of the canon I still have yet to read. It is a daunting task to read all of those plays. Boarding will begin any minute. Checked into my hotel. A nondescript building in Hell's Kitchen. I am told by the receptionist it is the closest hotel to the Lincoln Center. The film begins in 2 hours. I suppose I should find the theater. Watched the film. Upon arrival, I was struck by the serenity of the place. The chaos of the city all around, yet once you enter the centering courtyard, a great stillness pervades. I did not realize Juilliard was there. In a different life, I could have been a good student. And no, I am. Only in the classical sense. Only in Hamlet's sense am I a fellow student. The movie is obviously Tarkovsky's most autobiographical film. His and his family's experiences through the war with Stalin. Watching a movie, as with playing a song, is a liminal dream space. It washes over you. Often only certain frames remain, as now, where I'm struck dumb by two sequences. The little boy grabbing the bird off of his head, as well as his mother dashing through the newspaper offices. And lastly, the tapestry on the wall during the phone call of Andrei Rublev. I would guess the only active breaking of the fourth wall. Cheekiness. The pacing of the bird and the mad dash to the presses was agonizing. Meditative. As still as motion allows, it pulls you all the way in. A day has passed, some 26 hours since the film screening. I landed in El Paso around 2 o'clock. Kevin picked me up. His house is only 10 minutes or so from the airport. So what are you up to the next 24 hours? Oh, I don't know. I don't really go out like I used to. My friends from Denver came last month, but now I chill most of the time. Kevin's a rave, EDM, bisexual, EDC type guy. The bi part, I guess. But an educated one. Yeah, I get that. You know me. I'm an alien. I don't go out either. I was gonna say if you want to do something tonight, I could stick around, but if you're trying to chill, I think I'll go to this park, Big Bend. It's on the border, 3.5 hours from here. Kevin's eyes go wide. What's it called again? Big Bend National Park on the Rio Grande. You want to come? I got some mushrooms. Just tonight and tomorrow, then I gotta go to Colorado. Nah. I'll talk to my church about it. We'll go sometime soon. They're always looking for hikes. You ever thought of letting the cartel dig a tunnel to your house? I like my head attached, thanks. I nodded in understanding and gave him a hug as I left. I get it. Let's see each other again soon. Thanks for letting me park my truck here. No problem, dude. Be careful. I got pulled over on the way here. Two good old boys. Their gaydar for extraterrestrials spiked immediately. The truck is a denizen of vice, completely stuffed with books, curios, and a healthy supply of litter. One white, one Hispanic, late 20s, early 30s. The white guy, real ignorant hick, approaches the passenger door with a wide 10-gallon cowboy hat in matching beige to their uniform. He's a square dancing type faggot. I reach across and roll the manual window down. License, registration, proof of insurance. His eyes go wide with drug conspiracies as I hand him the shit through the truck. He darts his eyes between the information and my person. Where you headed? Big Bend, the park. His partner shines a maglite with zeal through the debris scattered everywhere. My weed and mushrooms are perfectly concealed, barely hidden at all, in the floorboard of the passenger seat unoccupied. But as I never smoke in my vehicle, there is nothing suggesting intoxication beyond my dirty hippie aesthetic. So, he says, you're on vacation? Well, I have tonight and tomorrow night. I wouldn't call that a vacation necessarily, but yes, I am using this time for recreation. He taps his finger on my license, looks to his partner, looks back to me. Wait here. He walks back to the cruiser with my information, leaving his partner to continue molesting my vehicle with false fire. He entreats his first word. Any drugs in the car? I pull my Trump major. I get drug tested for work. He looks for the truth of it in my eyes. My vertical pupils. Doesn't mean you don't have drugs. Got any drugs in your vehicle? He smiles as his partner approaches. He adopts the primary position in front of the window, indicating status, if meager and superficial. You know why we pulled you over? Can't say I do. The light on your license plate is out. It's against the law. You been drinking? Another Trump. Nope, I got a DUI in 19. So I still have this breathalyzer. His partner offers his critique. Seems sober. Square dancing 10-gallon hat wearing hick ass beer drinking ignorant as sin fag gives me back my identity. I'm gonna give you a warning. Get it fixed. Or you can't drive at night. And so you know, you're not registered to vote. You should probably do that. I'll think about it. I've never voted. Never will. Have a good night. Be safe. Thanks. You too. I arrived some 20 minutes ago and am now parked outside of the Welcome Center. The 2-lane paved road leads through the gate, open and unoccupied at these evil hours, to the Welcome Center where the road splits, forming a triangle, with the 4x4 back road along the Rio Grande being the hypotenuse. It was several hours driving. It is pitch black now, midnight, no moon. Upon arrival, I opened the door and examined the panorama. I could not see much of the park, the sky, the stars, Orion along the horizon, making his escape as summer approaches. It appears a coyote has just given birth. The wild cacophony of howling permeates the atmosphere, as though they don't know how to do it. No focus. Slipshod shouting towards the mystery. It touched something, hearing it. I won't go any further until morning, too risky. Just after 8 a.m. I got in line in the backcountry permit, to get the backcountry permit. Some dozen people, van life types, hipsters, dull, indoctrinated, well-meaning folk. The conversation was curt and to the point. Hello, Ranger Rick or whatever his name is, says timidly. How can I help you? I'm interested in a backcountry permit just for the one night. Tonight. You got a 4x4 wheel drive? I can't give you the permit without it. Hesitation betrays uncertainty. Yep, green truck right over there behind those vans. He looks lazily, reaches his gaze as far as his ambition allowed. He gave much more thorough inspections to the vehicles on either side of me in line. He averts his gaze back to the table set up outside the entrance and produces the permit. He hands me a pen, produces a clipboard, and the permit itself. What did you have in mind? I know what I want. Any of these spots near the paved road are ideal. He rebukes me immediately. I can give you Black Dyke. 10 miles into that fucking back road. Fuck me. Great. Sounds good. Let's do it. Fill out both of these. Put the permit on your dash facing out. This is so. If we find your vehicle and you're lost, we'll know who you are. Sorry. I sign everything. Fill everything out. Thanks. Have a good one. Another day passes. The darkness is still absolute. Bear in mind I drive a 2-wheel drive stick shift with a fucking breathalyzer because of a DUI I got. So every time I drive, it's fucking synchronized swimming. I'm like one of those guys in Metropolis, constantly shuffling those clock hands to seemingly arbitrary blinking lights. I made it. I'm here now. Though I am certain I will not make it back out. I arrived in one piece in a great state of anxiety. As soon as you turn off of the pavement, the road instantly degenerates into the most primitive idea of that word. And that hill. I won't make it back up it. I'm not worrying about it now. I arrived in the heat of the afternoon. Maybe 8 hours to drive 10 miles. There's no shade. The site is shored by rocky hills, and the road on one side, and these tall, barren, almost bamboo-like plants. Perhaps they flower sometime. Now they are stark, offering a unique whistling and tapping as the wind knocks them amongst themselves. Inside the thicket of these bizarre plants, a 4-minute walk through animal paths carved by black bears and wild pigs. The Rio Grande. So narrow. The water greenish blue. Across more of the same whistling cane-like plants, with a towering canyon behind. As the afternoon waned, I visited the river. It was very hot. Such an abusive landscape. It seemed too soft a place where nothing could live. It seemed to a soft human a place where nothing could live. Though with my feet in the river, I was constantly shuffling ants elsewhere. Saw other insects as well. I never saw any mammals or birds. It was quite nice, serene. I sketched the scene at the water's edge. The river was cool, cold even. It is so narrow you could leap across. With sunset approaching, I made some pomegranate tea, spiked with a bunch of sugar and honey, and dumped 3.5 grams of mushrooms into the pot. It was enough to fill up my thermos. Over the course of 1 hour, I consumed it all. It tastes like hot candy. As the golden hour descended in tandem with my fungal ascent, I climbed the rocks between the site and the road, and was awestruck by the magnitude, the immensity of the creation. That canyon, the radial spectrum of sunset colors. It was as graceful as any moment can be. Exceeding excellence, a phantasmagoria. The stillness when the wind stopped. But the wind is angry here. My hair flies across my face. I need a hat. The witching hour approaches. When I close my eyes, I see a great mechanism, whose pieces all contribute through motion. I can see them, but I cannot tell you what they are, what they do. There's a radiance. I think of the word clock, but it degrades it. Insufficient. A great mutating expression. Some symbolic allegory I may never decipher. Tomorrow, the true adventure. Such uncertainty. I have to sleep while I can. I'm now sitting at the closest gas station to the park between the entrance and the Welcome Center. Today was the most dramatic of my life thus far, including my 3 arrests and years of drug abuse. Equal in place to any of my favorite Clam shows. Cinematic, so tense. The pinnacle of anxiety. I awoke with the beginning of the scorch, just after sunrise before 7 a.m., sweating. I realized as soon as I woke up that I had left a whole bottle of water at the Welcome Center, and therefore had maybe 1 liter of water in a savage desert wilderness. I tried to get back the way I came, but when I arrived at this hill of shale and sand, I could not get all the way up it. And after almost teetering over the edge, I backed down it, turned around, spent a half hour digging a fucking rock out from under my tire which would not turn over it, and headed the other way. I knew my only other option was to drive all the way through, 42 miles from the site to the other paved road leading to the Welcome Center from the opposite side of the park. It was exhausting and filled with peril. It took all day, with a true cornucopia of conditions. Sometimes the rocks are so big you have to drive fucking 2 miles an hour, climbing a vehicle up a rock wall as though it's a person. Other times the road is so sandy and loose you have to drive 30 miles an hour over it to not sink. All the while my cock-sucking breathalyzer. There were at least 3 moments where Providence saw fit to let me continue. I saw people, I did. So likely I would not have died, but if the truck had broken down or wrecked, survival would have compelled me to flag down every vehicle, otherwise I would have dehydrated by the end of the day. Upon arrival to the paved road, peppered with immigration vehicles, I threw it in park and gave it a good once-over. There's no damage, nothing leaking or bent. I can't recommend it to anyone in good conscience. Now, I am a professional manual transmission operator. To have no water. Every fucking hill and rocky obstruction seemed to spell my unfortunate demise. Just gunning it for dear life, and praying the tires kept grabbing the ground and propelling the vehicle forward, drinking capfuls of water to ration. Absolute sobriety. I kissed the pavement and thanked God. I have to drive to New Mexico. So I'll stop right there for now. I don't know if that's actually 10 pages, but again, it's a novelization of my experiences with Quentin Tarantino. Quentin doesn't come in until maybe 100 pages in. Even more. It's probably more like 250 pages in. But I do like those pages. I must admit. I like those pages a lot. But of course, my criticisms, I have to go, there's a lot of showing and not telling, right? As far as like being in the park, right? Like I'm describing the park, right? But I'm not in the park. I need to go back, really, with a good vehicle and go all the way through it again, like I did in that vehicle. And then I'll be able to write it better in that way. But that was a crazy, crazy night for sure. Crazy day. Perilous to get there. And then the sunset. No moon. Dark. As dark as any environment can be. Now I have to go back when the moon's full. And it'll be like second daylight, But yeah, it took me all day. Tried to go back the way I came. I had to turn around, go all the way through the other way, all alone, drinking capfuls of water, had like no water. Right? Pretty fucking legendary. Didn't fuck my vehicle up at all. God, it was so tense. God, it just gives me anxiety just thinking about it. I thought I might spend some time, because Quentin is not going to emerge for a while. And I'll talk about his campaign as much or as little as I want, but I thought I'd take some time today to discuss Russellian science, something that defines so much of my worldview. And in order to do that, we have to begin by discussing someone else. His name is Buckminster Fuller. And in his sublime masterwork, Synergetics 1 and 2, he espouses, the last wisdom, perhaps, that you'll ever need to know about geometry, as far as celestial geometry. But he says that triangle is the only truly structurally sound, right, condition, right? And so, right, the tetrahedron, right, is the fundamental boom, right? Triangle is the only thing with structure, right? This began as the Star of David, right, the Seal of Solomon. Then straight lines are drawn to connect to the opposites, right? And it turns it into what's known as a stellated octahedron, the star tetrahedron, right? And so from there, as soon as you make the Star of David, right, you divide each of the sides of the triangle, right, into the golden mean, right, by the points of intersection of the two triangles in relation to each other, right? And so if you take these 6 vectors, or it's 3 lines, but and divide each of them on either side of the radial point, right, so that it gives you 6, what is it, 2, 4, 6, it gives you 12 more, right, subdivisions, right, by the golden mean, right? Because if this is one edge, right, it's divided by the golden mean right here and right here, right? And so you have to do that with all of these in the middle as well, right? And then if you connect them in a particular way, right, it gives you a cube, right? And so this isn't just any cube, is it, right? This cube is trifurcated by its volume. So there's a square going through the middle of this face, and there's a square going through the middle of this one, and there's a square, all 90 degrees to each other, so that one cube becomes 8 cubes, right? And so you can have a sphere in each of these if you wanted, right? And so this is really touching at the heart of Russellian science, right? That Walter Russell alleges that every cubic centimeter of space is centered by a infinite lattice of a cubic wave field, right? And so if we go back to Buckminster Fuller, right, and we take a moment to consider the vector equilibrium. And I have one somewhere, but I don't have it with me, but it doesn't matter. But you arrive at the vector equilibrium by fully truncating the cube, right? Or the octahedron, yeah, either or, but right, for the sake of Brasilian science, right? This is the static geometry, right? Which is a celestial scaffolding, and so these square bifurcations of the volume, right, are the planes of least resistance. Of course, any plane in this field is potentially a plane of least resistance, right? But this middle point right here, right, that's where all the magic happens, right? So space collapses, right? This is the focal point of the conscious field's energy, and it's collapsing it from the outside in, right, towards the focal point, gravitation, right? Right? And so what's interesting about this, right, is that this gives you, just out of the subdivisions, right, of through the Star of David, right, through the star tetrahedron, right, which is the three-dimensional Star of David, right, you get the cube, the 2 cubed, right? It's 8, right? 2 cubed is 8, so there's 1 cube, right? And then there's 8 smaller cubes inside of it, right? Which is 2 cubed, right? So 1 cubed is 1, right? And then 2 cubed is 8, right? And so if you wanted to, right, you could take a pencil, if I know what I did with mine. Anyway, right? My point is that it's an infinite fractal, right? That I could draw more sets of 3 squares in all 8 of these, right? And then I could draw, again, it goes all the way to the subatomic level, right? And so this is how he says space is structured, right? Right? And so when you truncate, right? If we call this a square edge, right? And it is, right? You could truncate it, this edge, all the way to the center, right? On all 12 of the edges, right? And then it becomes the vector equilibrium. And once you have the vector equilibrium, it collapses, right, into the 5 platonic solids, right? Right? And so these two great geniuses, they're saying the same thing in their own way, right? Right? That this is the static, the static condition, right? With the noble gases in rest, right? The akashic substance, which records the experience, right, of manifested matter, which emerges out of it, right? And so, as the creator is thinking, right, the edges get truncated, right, to a point to where it locks into the new geometry of the vector equilibrium, right, and then, right, begins to breathe, begins to collapse, right, through the icosa, the dodeca, the octahedron, and the tetrahedron, right? And so this is how, right, this is how out of seemingly nothing something comes, right? It's a material simulation of a nobler spiritual truth. Platonic forms, this is, right, like this, that is the way, right? Is it true? Is it provable intellectually? Of course, it can never be proven, right? Who could prove these things? Perhaps I could, if I had the resources, right? But, right? So, the mind of God permeates all of space, right? And these radiate out in all directions, right? Right? At all scales and convocations simultaneously, right? And so the pressure from the conscious field, right? From the divine intellect of God Almighty, right? Exerts pressure on that hologram, right? Which degrades its perfection into through the cubic wave field into the vector equilibrium, into, right, the platonic solids, right, which we see mirrored in the molecular structure of all chemical, right, elements, right? This is the point, right? Right? So what does that have to do with Quentin Tarantino? Right? What does that have to do with the movie critic? Right? Huh? I don't know what motivates him, I guess. It's like my point. So it's like what I'm saying right now, you know? You know? There's not, it's just nothing graceful to say about it right now at this point, you know? It's just dangerous, you know? It's just ugly. It's just evil. You know? And so I hope we find an amicable resolution soon, you know? Because as long as we're silent on this matter, I have no choice but to assume that he wants me to die, right? And since he can't compel me to blow my brains out, right, the next step is to send people to my home to murder me, right? And sure, why hasn't it happened yet? Yes, you're not well, you're schizophrenic. Yes. I know. Right. Right. But what I'm saying, right, is that anyone can do it. Right? That this isn't special. It's special to hone it, you know, to have it as a facility, to be sure. Right? So, right. Mind of God rests eternally, right? With the abstract form, right? The platonic form, crystallized idea of all of life, right? All that ever was, all that is, all that ever will be. Locked as a perfectly nested hologram within every cubic centimeter of space. Right? And so consciousness, the conscious field, right, mutates that static infinity. Right? And through the specific dihedral angle, right, of corruption, right, the hologram is fractured, right, in a particular direction, right, towards a particular orientation, right, and that however that is mirrored in the material world, right, that's why you see what you see. You understand? Right? That everything emerges from, right? Or, right? Everything's an accident. And it's hollow intellectually. It has no weight to it at all. There's very little supporting that notion. If anything, sincerely supporting that notion. But we must recognize that ultimately, at the end of the day, it's an inference of faith. You know, it's saying, "Oh, I choose to decide that this is how the world is." Some people derive meaning out of nihilism. You know, I don't know. It's hard for me. Hard for me to imagine waking up and saying, "Oh well, none of this matters. None of this means anything." Anyway, I don't feel like singing. It's late. My family's asleep. But right, this is the power. This is the game. Right? The mind of man is the mind of God, etc., etc. Right? Right. Consciousness permeates every cubic centimeter of space, right? And through disciplining your mind, right, you can seek people out and find them with your mind's eye. This is what I was explaining to you in the other video, right? That through wielding, right? That through wielding the compass, right? And conjuring, right? Conjuring these things in your mind, right? That you're thereby connected, right? Because this thing, right? This thing is a piece of the divine eternal hologram, right? That suspends all of creation within every cubic centimeter of space, right? So this is what that's the game, right? Does Quentin know that? Right? Is that what motivates him? No, of course not. I'd like to say it's none of my business what motivates him. You know? But, of course it is. It's his business what motivates me. It's my business what motivates him. Forever. Forever. Right? Right? This is not a child's game. This is not pen pal chess. Right? So, you know, I understand. I get it. Right? And so I'll be vigilant forever, as much as I can be. Right? But I'm not going to be singing. It's too late. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Meditate on eternity. Tell someone you love how special they are to you.